Nebraska is a state of rich and varied resources. From the forests of the Missouri River in the east, through the breathtaking scenery of the Niobrara Valley to the shortgrass prairies in the west, our diverse geography supports a vast array of plant and animal life and a variety of recreational opportunities. The agency responsible for managing these resources is the Nebraska Game and Parks Commission. This agency provides the public with facilities such as state parks and manages public fish and game resources. Like similar agencies across the nation, the Nebraska Game and Parks Commission now faces a crisis. With the gradual decline of hunting and fishing as recreational activities, the Commission is running short on the funds that these activities once provided through license sales. Without this funding, the Nebraska Game and Parks Commission will be unable to adequately perform its duties. The Nebraska Game and Parks Commission is charged with the stewardship of the state's fish, wildlife, parks, and outdoor recreation. Its mission is to manage these resources for the maximum benefit of all Nebraskans, while maintaining biodiversity and helping the state's residents appreciate the natural world. The Nebraska Game and Parks Commission has several official roles in the state. It administers the state parks and other public access facilities. It also regulates fishing and hunting by setting and enforcing limits and seasons. The Nebraska Game and Parks Commission is also in charge of managing wildlife on public lands and assisting with management on private lands, as well as managing fish populations across the state. Lastly, it conducts research to facilitate the above goals and does public outreach to inform the people of Nebraska. The Nebraska Game and Parks Commission receives very little funding from general tax dollars. Instead, the money it needs is collected from the people that use public resources through the sale of permits. These include park entry passes and licenses for hunting, fishing, and trapping.
Hello, my name is Zachary Abel, and you and I have something in common. That is, the wildlife and recreational resources of Nebraska need our support as stewards. A steward is someone who accepts responsibility for taking care of resources even though they may not be theirs. The Nebraska Game and Parks Commission is a whole agency of stewards dedicated to this cause. You and I, as anglers and hunters, play the most vital role in the fiscal chain that supports this agency. You may not be aware of this, but in 2008, over 60% of the Game and Parks Commission's revenue came from the park, hunting, and fishing permit sales. Another 30% came from the federal reimbursements. These reimbursements are based on an excise tax from the sale of hunting, fishing, and boating equipment, so a portion of every fishing pole, lure, gun, or ammo sold comes back to Nebraska. Fishing and hunting have an economic ripple effect on the state. The buying of permits directly supports the game and parks and also enhances the local economy by creating and supporting jobs and businesses. The Game and Parks Commission receives limited state funding and few private donations. This means the Game and Parks depends on people like you and me to be able to fulfill our obligation to the wildlife, parks, and recreational resources of Nebraska. However, over the past few decades, with the population shift from rural to urban, there has been a downward trend in the number of resident fishing and hunting permits sold. The number of fishing permits has declined by about 33% in the last 29 years, and hunting permits have declined by 64% in the last 29 years. With less permits being sold, there is less money for the Game and Parks resources of Nebraska. Even though you may not hunt or fish, just purchasing a park permit or hunting license, you are being a steward of our state's natural resources.
Hunting and fishing is a long accepted family tradition by Nebraska citizens. Hunters and anglers have shown the general public the importance for conservation of the natural outdoors and all of the wildlife in it. Staying in touch with the outdoors has been shown to improve overall health and mental well-being. The Nebraska Game and Parks Commission have created a plan for the recruitment, development, and retention of hunters and anglers in Nebraska, or simply the RDR plan. The RDR plan is based on the original ideas the early hunters and fishermen supported and believed in. Beliefs such as consumptive hunting and fishing should be for legitimate reasons. Everyone should have the opportunity to hunt and fish, and no market hunting. Hunters and anglers were the first people to take an interest in conservation activism. Not only do hunters and anglers contribute to the state's conservation efforts, the permits they purchase contribute large sums of funding to the state. In 2006, hunters and anglers contributed nearly $376 million to the state's economy. Lately, however, the number of permits being purchased is decreasing. This is impacting not only the economy, but also conservation efforts. Game and Parks offices around the state depend on the funding from hunters and anglers to aid in everyday operations and natural resource management. This is why the RDR plan was developed, to recruit new hunters whether they are young or old, bring back relapsed hunters and anglers, and maintain and develop present hunters and anglers. The implementation process for the RDR plan follows a funnel concept. First, create awareness and interest, then introduce them to outdoor recreation. Continue the process with growth and development, and finally have them mentor others. The Game and Parks Commission has come up with some goals and objectives to be completed in the future. These are what make up the complete RDR plan. These goals and objectives were set in place to hopefully increase the number of hunters and anglers in the future and reinforce the ideas and benefits of conversing with nature. There are 5 goals that are set for completion. 1. Recruitment of youth hunters and anglers. 2. Recruitment of new adult hunters and anglers. 3. Recruitment of lapsed hunters and anglers. 4. Development and retention of existing hunters and anglers. And 5. Maintain support of hunting and fishing by all citizens in Nebraska. Strategies to aid in the completion of these goals include 1. Finding motivations and constraints for people deciding to hunt and fish. Find ways to overcome barriers within each goal. Make sure hunters and anglers have access and opportunities to public areas, and educate, market, and evaluate the RDR plan. Along with strategies to complete goals, each goal has various action plans connected with it as steps to completion. So as you can see, the main priority of the RDR plan is to recruit new hunters and anglers, both young and old. The rest of the plan is to bring back lapsed hunters and anglers and maintain all present hunters and anglers.